Hello, everyone. This is MMA Interesting Prospects podcast. Today, our guest is Cody Linne, who will be fighting in Anthony Pettis Fighting Championship show against Dan Moriarty. Hello, Cody. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Yes, I'm good, thanks. And this fight with Dan will be really big prospect fight in the flyweight division. So please tell me about your opponent. What do you think about him, and what do you think will be next for you if you're gonna win?
Yeah, Dan's he has a really good game that he's good at, right? He likes putting the pressure, working the clinch, his takedowns, like grinding. He's more like high pace, trying to grind you out. But I'm confident I can shut that down, and I'm confident I keep the same pace he keeps the whole fight. And then of course I see myself winning. I honestly see me getting the finish. Second or third. I don't think he's good, right? He has skills, so I don't think it'd be a first round, right? He's a tough opponent, but I do see myself getting the finish. I win this fight. I don't know if APFC is gonna do it, but there's a lot of talk about fighting for the flyweight champion. So this is like a number one contender spot. So that may be the next step after this fight.
Yes, and I think that if you beat Dan, who is undefeated as the amateur, and as the pro, and you finish him, it will be like very good point for you.
Yeah, I agree. He's a good. I like where I'm at right now. It's a good next step for my career. So I beat him. I think it proves like okay, I'm ready for the belt, and then getting the belt proves okay, UFC, I'm here. We gotta start talking now.
And the flyweight champion is also undefeated, also very good fighter. He finished his opponent in the first round, so it will be like after Dan, it will be like the next step for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I like that he's really well rounded. I already watched a little bit of footage on him before I even took this fight because I seen he was fighting, so I wanted to, of course, see who the flyweight champion was. But yeah, he's definitely well rounded. He's really good. He's 7-0 for a reason.
And because you are a quite young fighter, when do you want to go to the UFC? Because you are 23 right now.
Yeah, I turned 23 in a couple weeks here. But yeah, so I talked to my coaches, right? We think around 10 pro fights is a good number. Of course, things can change. I can't really tell the future, but we're aiming for around 10 fights. We like how everything's looking, how we're feeling, then we'll have that conversation. If I need more fights, then we'll just keep racking the wins up. But again, I say no less than 10 fights before I go to UFC.
Yes, and if you have a 10 fight, it means that at first you are a LFA veteran, so I think that it is a good thing, and also you will be a champion, maybe defending champion. So it's also you will be 10 fights, but it's not fights against like not very good fighters, but against really good top prospects on regional scene.
Yeah, I agree. That's always the thing I want to do. I know there's a lot of guys that win 10 fights and don't really fight any tough fights. I want to make sure before I get in the UFC, I have those tough fights. When I get in the UFC, I have that experience already. I'm there to stay, not just say I was in the UFC.
And about your next fight, because you have four submissions, so even just strictly about numbers, you are a submission fighter. Uh, is it a plan to finish your opponent right now by submission, or you will be planning to go for a knockout, maybe ground and pound?
There's no, I don't really have a set. I have an idea, a game plan, right? But when I get in there, I don't really try to hunt for a specific thing, right? I'm always trying to look for the finish, but I'm not gonna force anything, right? So if I catch him on the way in, if I get on top and ground and pound, or if he leaves me an arm and I take it, whatever it is, I'm looking for the finish and I'll take it. But I'm not necessarily hunting for one thing for the whole fight.
Yes, and in your fight against Brzezinski in LFA, you showed that you are a very good fighter also in a span of 15 minutes, not only first round. So I also think that it's a good experience.
Yeah, I like that fight because I like going the 3 rounds. I definitely wish I could have showed more. I'm way better with that fight shows. And this fight I want to do that. I want to show how good I really am and what I can really do. Whether again, I feel like I'm getting the finish, but if we go 3 rounds, I'm gonna prove I can go 3 rounds and keep that high pace the whole time.
And please tell me about your beginning in the sport. What was the first like discipline that you train?
I went to Rothwell MMA when I was 12, and actually at the time I was thinking my first discipline was going to be kickboxing. Went in there, wanted to sign for kickboxing. But at that time, actually, obviously I was 12. They didn't have any kids programs. So there's no kickboxing programs, I should say. So they had kids jiu-jitsu. So I wanted to do martial arts. So we just decided to go with the jiu-jitsu. And then I did that for maybe a year and a half. And then they started adding the kickboxing class for kids, started doing that. And then the wrestling kind of came here and there with like wrestling coaches that would help me. But yeah, my first discipline was jiu-jitsu and happened to be what I was really good at anyways.
And I think that right now it's like from fans' perspective, it's like your best part of the game, submissions. I mean grappling. So it means that when the opponent would like to go to the ground with you, he's like always in danger.
Yeah, I'm feeling really confident in my striking, feeling even more confident in my wrestling. And then when it goes to the ground, I've always felt comfortable there. And I never feel out of place. I always feel like if I'm on the ground, I'm always trying to attack. So they better be defending. Like if top, bottom doesn't matter, I feel comfortable on the ground for sure.
And please tell me about your training in Rothwell MMA, because Big Ben Rothwell is like 1 week away from his big win in the Bernacle. So your training is going there?
Yeah, my training's been going really well. I have a lot of good partners there. It's good because Ben, again, he helps me as much as he can. He focuses on me so much. He guides me in the right direction, right? He has all that experience. So he guides me not only in the gym, but also outside the gym. Technically right now he's my manager too, and he's been guiding me and helping me. But yeah, I couldn't thank him enough. And then again, everybody at Rothwell, my training partners, they're all high level and they're helped me a lot. But yeah, I spend part time at Rothwell and part time at VFS up in Chicago, which those guys are really good too. They got guys in UFC, all that. So it's really good training mix, and I'm feeling really confident in this camp.
And who is your like the main sparring partners, either in the Rothwell MMA or in the Chicago?
At Rothwell, I'd say James Bennett. He actually might be fighting on this card with me. He's supposed to. This is trying to give him a matchup. John Zavala and then Mike Harnish, probably my three top in Rothwell. And then when I go VFS, Carlos Hernandez. He's fighting a week after me in the UFC, so we're like in the camp at the same time. He's my main training partner. Adam and Jose from VFS too. They really helped me a lot too with their wrestling and stuff.
Yes, and Carlos is also a LFA veteran. He's fighting in the UFC, and he's in your weight class. So
Yeah.
he probably is a great sparring partner for you.
Yeah, I definitely try and train with him, get as many rounds as I can with him. He's definitely one of my favorite training partners.
And if the contender series option would show up, would you be interested in taking this, or you prefer to have a little bit more experience on the regional scene and then go straight to the UFC?
Yeah, I would definitely want more experience on regional scene. Again, I'm gonna turn 23 in a couple weeks here. There's no rush, right? I always feel personally like I have to rush. I have to get there, but my coaches keep telling me I'm young, right? I got to realize that because I'm competing against all these guys, 29, 30 years old, and I don't see the age gap. I just see like I got to beat these guys, but I got to realize like there's an age gap. I have time. I can take my time, get the right experience. So when we get there, we're ready for sure.
And would you see yourself in the future in bantamweight division, or you prefer to stay in the flyweight division even in like next 10 years?
Again, future, I'm not sure, but right now, I'm planning on staying flyweight. When I get older, who knows how the weight will come off and stuff like that. But of course, in the scene future, I want to stay at flyweight for sure.
And if you can fight right now with any flyweight fighter in the world, like a dream fight, do you feel about with who do you like to fight?
If I had a choice, of course, I mean, it's probably a cliche answer, but UFC champ, right? Brandon Moreno, that'd always be a dream fight because that's the goal, right? The UFC belt. So if I get that fight, of course, that'd be the one I'd pick.
And do you have a fighter on the regional scene that you would like to face?
Not really, honestly. I'm obviously always keeping everybody in mind. I always keep my weight class. I know who's fighting, where they're fighting. I try and keep up with that. But again, I take every fight one at a time, right? I don't want to rush or look forward. Like how they're talking about fighting for the belt. Yes, that's exciting, but I have to get through Dan first, right? I got to focus on him. So right now, who I want to fight is Dan. That's who I want to fight. That's my focus. After that, we'll see what happens. Then whoever they give me next, that's who I want to fight. I don't want to look far ahead of someone that's not even in the picture right now.
And how many fights do you have in your contract, if you can tell, with the Anthony Pettis fighting championship?
This was just a one fight contract. So it's just this fight. I signed for this fight, and then again, if they're talking for the belt, sign another contract. But yeah, there's no multi fight deal. It's just this one fight contract for right now.
And I think that this is good for the fighters, that there are many shows on the regional scene, like LFA, like Anthony Pettis fighting championship, A1 Combat, Uriah Faber. So there are many places that where young fighters can fight, get some experience, get a belt. What I think is also important, and then go to the UFC with some recognition, because the all this promotions are also shown on Fight Pass. So you can not fight for the UFC, but you can be well known all over the world.
Yeah, for sure. It's good exposure. All these shows, especially fighting on Fight Pass, like some people watch it, they go on Fight Pass and it shows everything that's going on live right there. You can click on and see you get a crazy knockout, crazy submission, some kind of finish. Your name for sure will get out there.
And you are right now a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And do you start in any kind of competition right now, or do you like MMA is like a main focus for you?
Yeah, MMA's main focus. Last year I did compete twice in gi and no gi. I did two tournaments just because I was kind of between my LFA loss and then my win streak. Now I took some time off. I changed my train a little bit. I bulked up a little bit. Started training at BFS and all that. But in between that, of course, like those 4 or 5 months, it was like I still want to compete, right? So my coach was like, okay, you can do grappling terms at least. So I did two. But MMA is definitely a main focus. But every now and then, I might just jump in there, do a grappling tournament if I have some time in between fights.
And what do you think about like losing in MMA? Because you are right now not undefeated, but sometimes we can see fighters that are undefeated in, let's say, 10 fights, and they are like focused to protect their record, not taking the risk. And what do you think about like losing in MMA?
I think it's a really good thing, right? Especially if you can take it for where it is in an early stage, right? So my third fight I lost to a tough opponent, right? LFA. But honestly, from that fight, I changed so much in my training that I believe that fight gave me the ability to have this about to be 4 fight win streak right now, right? Because it opened my eyes. Like I trained, of course, really good. I had good coaches. I still do all that, but there's little things I was missing, right? And that kind of just opened my eyes to train differently and really focus on things I need to focus on. And I feel like from then, my game and even myself mentally, physically has changed so much. So honestly, that one loss as a pro, especially, that changed everything. I think a loss can make you way better if you take it the correct way.
Yes, because you can eliminate it, these weaknesses, the way that you lost. I don't know, maybe by submission, maybe by
Yeah.
knockout, but you can take this as the lesson, and improve this like gap in your skill,
Yeah.
and being back and win the fights.
Yeah, is even on a win, of course, I still, if it's a 1 minute fight, if it's a 15-minute fight, I still look at things I did wrong or could have done better, whether that's leading up to the fight, whether that's in the back room, whether that's in the fight, whether that's even after the fight, right? Things I can always improve on. Because for me, I get my confidence from my training and everything I do, right? So if I know I'm doing everything I possibly can do, I go in the fight with confidence. I believe wholeheartedly that I can win this fight or any fight if I do the correct training for it.
And where do you see yourself in, let's say, 5 years? Do you want to be in the UFC rankings? Maybe top five, maybe top 15?
Yeah, so definitely in UFC, obviously. And being a flyweight was it's obvious. There's not that many of us, right? So in 5 years, I do believe I could be in the rankings. I got to win a couple fights, get on 3-fight win streak in the UFC at flyweight, and I'm already knocking on that doorstep of top 15 for sure.
Yes, and this is like a little bit a problem for fighters in the flyweight division because the UFC have it, of course, but Bellator or PFL don't. But so
Yeah.
the options are, let's say, limited.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I've always looked at like Bellator and PFL, but yeah, they don't have the 125 weight division, so it is tough because like for me to go up to 35, I'm a smaller 35. 25, I feel like I'm decent size, sometimes even bigger than my opponents right now. But yeah, 35, those guys are going to be most of the time bigger than me, and it's just that disadvantage, you know.
And overall, what do you think about flyweight division in the UFC?
It's definitely getting more entertaining, right? There's more guys getting in there, and for me, the division in general, I think is really entertaining. People don't like it, but there's so much skill and technique you need to be a flyweight, and there's so much speed, right, and the strength comparison that you can't mess up. You can't step that way. You got to make sure you're over here. You got to move this way, right? You can't really mess up, and everything's so technical. Which that's why I like technical fights. I like going out there and showing how much better I've gotten with my technique and really display what I can do. And again, I think flyweights they do that the best. No matter where you come from, if you're not technical as a flyweight, you're not going to make it that far.
Yes, I agree. Right now, maybe except the bantamweight division is one of the most
Yeah.
entertaining one because there are so high level of skills because of Moreno, because of Pantoja, Royval, Figueredo. So there are so many great fighters who can be a champion any given night.
Yeah, especially bantamweight. Bantamweight right now is stacked for sure. Flyweight is getting stacked too. It's those two divisions are really challenging in between each other for sure.
And what motivates you to train? Because MMA is like quite a hard sport, quite tough to be a MMA fighter. So what do motivates you?
Honestly, I really feel like I love the competitiveness, right? I really like winning. But I really think it's just I like proving to myself what I can do and how much better I can get with every camp, with every fight. So personally, it's more so for me and myself, I feel like, is like I can prove to everybody, yes, sure, but I can prove to myself, like, I can do this. I am this good at the sport, right? And it really motivates me every camp to try and get better.
And let's say outside of fighting, what do you like to do in your free time? Let's say that you are after your fight and you can't really train. What do you like to do?
That's a rough one, right? Because this is a lot what I do. If I'm not training, I'm watching footage. If I'm not watching footage, I'm probably sleeping. And I swear, when I'm sleeping, right before I fall asleep, what I think about it's fighting. So like my life is all about fighting. So even my coaches have told me like after fights, I gotta enjoy it. Because I used to be like, I'd fight, I'd literally go home, sit on the couch, and think like, okay, what's the next step, you know? And now I've been trying to, actually celebrate after my fights. Like I do put my body and myself through a lot. I gotta understand like you deserve this week or whatever it is, right? So I've been getting better at that. But there's not much I do. I just like hang out with my family and friends after fights. I don't do anything crazy. It's just I try and let myself just relax, be with them, give them the time they didn't have when I was in camp. Because when I'm in camp, my full focus is just training, fighting. If it doesn't have anything to do with that, it's really hard for me to convince myself to do something else.
Because that you are either training or thinking about fighting, do you watch your potential opponents and analyzing their style?
Yeah, for the most part. Again, once the opponent's locked in, I really try and just focus on them. But like I was saying earlier, I didn't really have an opponent locked in, so I was watching actually the flyweight champ. I watched a couple of his fights to kind of see what he was about, and then like a week later, they told me, okay, you're fighting Dan, so now Of course, my main focus has been on him. But in between, I just watch random fights too to kind of just I enjoy the sport as well, and I feel like you can always learn a little something from watching this guy or that guy. But yeah, again, I try to mainly just focus on my opponent if it's a fight I'm really trying to study and watch.
And how do you deal with the stress before your fights?
So leading up to the fight, obviously, like I'm still 5 weeks out. Yes, there's always that daily stress, but again, the way I kind of deal with that, I guess, is training. If I know I'm training, I know I'm doing the right things, I'm dieting, I'm doing all that, that stress kind of goes away, right? Um, Fight night, kind of the same thing, right? You're gonna have those nerves, that anxiety, you're gonna be scared. It's all the honest truth. Everybody feels it whether they want to admit it or not. But I try to accept those feelings where a lot of people try and run from them, right? I just accept them. I know I'm gonna feel them. I gotta take it. I gotta control it, which I feel like I've been getting a lot better with. And then in the back of my head, I already know I did everything I could possibly do this 8 to 10 weeks, right? So all I gotta do is go in there and perform, win, lose, draw. I know I did everything I possibly could do.
Yes, especially that in like 8 weeks you were in probably every kind of situation, either
Yeah.
in some grappling position or in a stand-up fighting. So you've been in every you deal with every potential problems.
Yeah, that's the goal. Of course, a fight, you train all these things and that one thing happens, right? So of course, that's always the goal to try and train every position, everything that your opponent's potentially gonna try or do, right? Or you're gonna see in the fight. Um, so for sure. And that's where I get my confidence from, is making sure I have all those boxes checked, right? And then of course making sure my diet, my conditioning, my strength, all that is on point as well.
And if you can take one skill of any fighter in the world, skill or some aspect, what do you choose?
Skill as a whole, Demetrius Johnson, he has the fight game down for sure. But if I had to choose one discipline, I would I would really honestly probably pick Habib's wrestling slash grappling, just as control and pressure. I've always wanted to feel that. You watch it, you only know so much. You can only like imagine so much. So I always wanted to feel and understand, but there's so many guys that are really good that he's just shut down with his grappling, no problem, right? So if I had to pick one, just discipline, I would say probably Habib's wrestling.
Yes, Khabib wrestling was quite unbeatable when
Yeah,
he was fighting, and he fought many great fighters, and he always win. And he's one of the only guys who was undefeated.
yeah, yeah. But I really like Demetrius Johnson's style because he mixes everything so well. I don't know if you watched his fight yesterday, but he mixes everything so well. His clinch game yesterday was really good. Um, but yeah, he's like one fighter I really look up to because he isn't kickboxing, he isn't jiu-jitsu, he isn't wrestling. He is MMA. He mixes everything so well.
Yes, and he's on the top of his game for more than 10 years. So it's
Yeah,
something also unbelievable, because sometimes the fighter is great in like 1 or 2 years, and then he is losing a fight because it's also a normal thing. But Dimitrius in this 10 year, he lost with quite controversial fight against Cejudo,
yeah,
and then this one fight against Moraes. And except that he beat everyone and every style.
yeah. He figures it out. He has a really high fight IQ for sure.
Okay, Cody. So many thanks for this conversation. I'm looking forward to this fight because it's like true battle of prospects, and I hope if you win, that you will be facing the champion of Anthony Pettis Fighting Championship, and this will be also great experience for you.
For sure. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. It means a lot. And yeah, let's hope we get that belt.